I'm Zach. I'm 28. I live alone in a small but decent apartment just outside Newark, New Jersey. I work for a mid-sized tech company, back-end developer, mostly Python and Node stuff. Nothing fancy, but I'm good at it. I keep to myself mostly. I got a couple of friends from college, but I've never been that guy who needs a big social life. Honestly, I'm just trying to build something real, my life, my stability, after a bunch of years that didn't make much sense. Anyway, a few months ago, something happened that still plays in my head. And it started like this. We had this open position on the product team. Everyone was waiting to see who'd fill it. The usual office gossip. Monday morning in walks Caroline. First impression, sharp, confident. Not in-your-face kind of confident, just comfortable in her own skin. She looked like someone who's been through stuff and came out better, not bitter. And yeah, she was beautiful. Like actually beautiful. Not Instagram filter beautiful. Early 30s, maybe mid, definitely older than me, but I didn't care. We got introduced during the daily stand-up. She smiled, shook my hand, and said, "Nice to finally meet someone who doesn't pretend to be interested in meetings." I smirked, said something lame like, "You'll fit right in." She laughed. Over the next few days, we kept bumping into each other in the kitchen outside, waiting for Uber by the elevators. It wasn't forced. She wasn't trying too hard. It was easy. We started having lunch together every now and then. At first I thought she was just being friendly, like genuinely one of those people who doesn't put up walls. She'd ask about my life, if I had family around, what I did on weekends, that sort of thing. She never made it feel like an interrogation. I remember she once told me, "I was married once, too young, thought love was enough." I just nodded and said, "Yeah, life's a better teacher than school." That's the kind of conversations we had. Nothing flirty, just real. She mentioned she used to live in Texas. Said she moved here after her divorce, needed a reset, no drama in her voice. She said it like she was talking about a weather change. That's what struck me. No bitterness, no self-pity. Just calm acceptance of what had been. One Friday after work, we had a company happy hour. Everyone was a little loose, sipping cocktails and laughing too loud. She didn't drink much, just one cider, but she stayed till the end. Most people had left when she looked over and asked, "You need a ride?" Quote. I wasn't going to say no. It was quiet in her car, not awkward, just calm. She had jazz playing low, windows slightly cracked open. We talked about stupid things. The worst bug I ever shipped, her first car, how terrible dating apps were. When we pulled up to my building, I unbuckled my seatbelt, looked over to thank her, and that's when she said it. "Don't fall for me unless you're ready for real things." I smiled. She smiled. I thought it was just a joke, but the way she said it, it wasn't loud or playful. It was soft, measured, like she was testing the ground. I didn't say anything back. I just chuckled, said goodnight, and closed the door. And for the rest of that weekend, I kept hearing her voice in my head. Not the words, the tone, the kind of tone you don't forget. Monday came, and the first thing I noticed was that Caroline was already at her desk. She usually came in around the same time I did, maybe a few minutes later. That day, she had her headphones in, eyes on the screen, tapping something out like she was in the middle of a flow. I didn't say anything, just walked past, nodded, and sat down, but I felt it. Something had shifted. At lunch, we were both in the break room, no one else around. I grabbed my sandwich from the fridge, and she turned just slightly toward me. "You still alive after Friday?" she said, half smiling. "Barely," I replied. Those sliders were not FDA approved. She laughed, and just like that, the tension eased, a little. We sat at the small round table near the window. She picked at a salad, and I tore into my sad little ham and cheese. "I feel like I said something weird the other night," she said without looking up. I paused, swallowed. "You mean about real things?" Quote. She glanced at me quickly. "Yeah, that." I shrugged. I didn't take it weird, just caught me off guard. Her voice dropped just slightly. "Yeah, I tend to do that. Say things and then pretend I didn't." I looked at her for a second longer than I probably should have. She met my eyes and didn't look away. Not this time. From that point on, things weren't exactly flirty, but they weren't neutral either. Like, every joke had a second meaning. Every glance hung a little longer than necessary, but she still played it cool. She was good at that. Really good. Later that week, we had a late work call with a vendor. After it ended, most of the team logged off. I stayed to close out a bug report. Caroline stayed too. "You want to get out of here?" she asked, standing behind me with her jacket in hand. "Like now?" I asked. She nodded. "Come on, you look like you need a drink." We ended up at a small bar a few blocks from the office. It wasn't crowded. Dim lights, old leather booths, soft music, mostly locals. She ordered a whiskey on the rocks. I got a beer. She leaned back against the booth and sighed like it had been a month of Mondays. We didn't talk work. She asked about my family. I told her I had a younger sister in Oregon, my mom in Jersey City. She asked if I was close to them. I said trying to be. She told me she hadn't spoken to her ex in over 2 years. We had this moment, she said, where we both just gave up, and neither of us fought for it. I didn't know what to say, so I just listened. She looked down at her glass, turned it slowly. "You ever think about it?" she asked. "About what?" I replied. "Marriage, family, all that?" Quote. I chuckled. "I guess not lately. Kind of feels like another planet, you know?" Quote. She nodded slowly. "Yeah, it does." We left the bar just after 9. She walked a little ahead, her hands in her pockets, looking up at the night sky like she was trying to read it. At the intersection, we stopped. The street was quiet. She turned to me, smirking, but her eyes were serious. "You know," she said, "you're the kind of guy I'd marry if I ever did it again." I laughed, not sure how to respond. That's some endorsement. She didn't laugh, just tilted her head. "You think I'm joking?" Quote. I don't know. Quote. She smiled then, the kind of smile people give when they're backing away from something they probably shouldn't have said, and then she changed the subject. Talked about how the bars smelled like old books, about how she missed libraries, about how dating apps made people disposable. But I kept hearing that sentence echo in my head. The next day, it got weirder. Not in a bad way, in a subtle way. We were in a meeting with the whole product team. Someone made a dumb comment about deadlines. Everyone laughed. And I cracked something dry like, if I had $1 for every sprint that actually delivered on time. A few people chuckled. Caroline, sitting across from me, looked at me for a second. Just looked, and then smiled. Not the good one, dude. Smile. Something different. Like she saw more than what I said. That smile did something to me. The next time we had lunch together, same small table, same casual vibe. I was telling a story about a roommate I had in college who used to bring home reptiles. She laughed. "You've lived a strange life, Zach." "You have no idea," I said, and then without breaking eye contact, she said it. "I could be your wife, you know, if you ever asked." She said it like a joke, but her eyes didn't blink. I froze. I smiled. That dumb, awkward smile guys do when their brain short-circuits. And then I said, "You'd make a great one." But I didn't mean it the way she needed me to. I said it like a comeback, not an answer. She gave a half laugh, pushed her tray away, and said she needed to get back to her desk. The rest of the day she was polite, kind, professional, but something between us had shifted. It went quiet, and for the first time since we met, I didn't know what she was thinking. The next morning, she didn't say a word to me. Not in a cold or angry way, just nothing. She walked past my desk like I wasn't there. I watched her talk with other people, laugh at someone's comment, help one of the interns with the doc, the usual. But with me, there was just a strange absence, and I got in my head about it. I started replaying that moment at lunch over and over. The way she said it, "I could be your wife," if you ever asked. Was it a joke, a test, a dare? Did I fail it? I couldn't focus. I tried debugging a stupid script for over 2 hours and realized afterward it was just a typo in one line. I got up to grab coffee and saw her standing by the kitchen talking with Nate from DevOps. I caught part of their conversation. She was laughing, not fake laughing, really laughing. I hated how much that bothered me. I wasn't supposed to care this much. She was older. We'd known each other a couple months. We hadn't even kissed, but already it felt like I'd lost something that hadn't even started yet. That night, I went home and sat in the dark for a while. Didn't turn the TV on. Didn't play any music. Just sat there with my phone in my hand. I opened our message thread a dozen times. Typed out things like, "Hey, but what you said, was that serious?" But deleted everyone. Around midnight, I gave up, tossed my phone across the bed and tried to sleep. Couldn't. At around 1:30 a.m., I got up and went for a walk around the block. I ended up outside this 24-hour diner, sat inside with a coffee I didn't need, watching people come and go, wondering if she'd already moved on from me in her head. The next few days were awkward. She kept a professional distance, but not rude. No more jokes, no more glances, no more what-ifs. And I kept screwing everything up. I missed a deadline, forgot to join a Zoom meeting. At one point, I even walked into a glass door in the lobby because I was texting while rushing out. Caroline saw it, smirked, and said nothing. I was spiraling. Friday evening, I stayed late to finish a backlog ticket. The office was mostly empty. I could hear the cleaner down the hall pushing a mop. I looked over at Caroline's desk. She was gone. That hit me harder than it should have. A week ago, she would have stayed late too. We probably would have gone for drinks or shared a laugh over microwave noodles. I opened Slack, started typing, "Hey, can we talk?" Deleted it. Typed again about what you said at lunch. Deleted that too. Then I closed my laptop and told myself I'd stop thinking about her. I made it as far as Saturday afternoon. I was at the grocery store standing in the frozen pizza aisle, staring at 5 brands like they meant something. My phone buzzed from Nate. "Saw Caroline last night. She was out with Liam from Dev. Just thought you'd want to know." I didn't reply. I stood there frozen, just staring into the glass. That night, I sat on my porch with a beer, watching the traffic pass, trying not to care, but it ate me alive. I didn't have the right to be jealous. I'd blown it. I let the moment pass. I treated her words like a joke when they clearly weren't. And now maybe she was seeing someone else. Maybe that window she gave me was closed. I thought about everything she'd said over the past few weeks. The honesty, the little smiles, the sentence in the car. "Don't fall for me unless you're ready for real things." The line at lunch, "I could be your wife." She wasn't messing around. I'd just been too cautious, too stunned, too unsure. Sunday morning, I woke up with a headache, made coffee, and sat at the kitchen table like a man who had one shot left. I opened her chat thread again, and this time I didn't overthink it. I typed, "Coffee, I owe you a better reaction." Then I hit send. No emoji, no nervous punctuation, just that. She didn't respond for almost an hour. I checked my phone 12 times, drank cold coffee, started pacing the apartment. Finally, the reply came in. "Tomorrow after work." No smiley, no extra words, just like mine. Monday dragged like molasses. I watched the clock from 9 a.m. like it was taunting me. Caroline didn't look at me the whole morning. Around 4:45, she glanced at me once and then looked away. When 6 o'clock hit, I stood up, grabbed my bag, and walked out the door. She was already waiting outside, leaning on her car, keys in hand. She didn't say anything when I approached, just nodded toward the passenger door. We drove in silence for 5 minutes. Soft music played. Same jazz she always liked. Then she said, "So you want to talk?" Quote. I nodded, "Yeah, I do." We pulled into a little cafe parking lot I didn't even know existed. It was quiet, dimly lit, and mostly empty. We ordered drinks, sat in a booth by the window, and the silence that sat between us wasn't awkward this time. It was expectant. I opened my mouth to speak, and then stopped. She raised an eyebrow. "What?" I looked at her and said, "I didn't know what to say when you said that thing at lunch about being my wife." She didn't move, didn't blink. I thought maybe you were joking, but something about the way you looked at me, I knew you weren't. She leaned back, folded her arms, and now I wished I hadn't hesitated. She nodded slowly. "I wasn't trying to scare you, Zach. I wasn't trying to rush anything. I've had enough men take me lightly. I didn't think you would. I looked down at my cup. I didn't mean to. I just didn't expect you to mean it. Quote. She was quiet for a second, then said, "Neither did I." That line hit harder than anything. Neither of us expected it, I said, but there it was. I looked at her for a moment. She wasn't smiling. She wasn't joking. She was waiting. We sat in silence for a bit after that. The kind of silence where both people are thinking the same thing but don't know how to say it. The cafe around us was quiet. The clink of cups and the low hum of indie music, the only background. Caroline picked up her drink, sipped, and stared out the window like she was somewhere else. "I guess I didn't expect you to take me seriously," she finally said. I looked at her. "Why not?" She shrugged. "Because most men don't. I joke a lot. I say things people don't know how to take. I'm used to people laughing it off or getting uncomfortable or assuming I don't mean it. And I guess when I said that thing about being your wife, I thought you'd either laugh with me or run." I stayed quiet. I could feel my hands sweating a little. But instead, she continued, "You did the third thing. You froze." I let out a breath, almost a laugh, but not quite. "Yeah, I did." She smiled faintly. "I didn't say it because I wanted you to propose or anything insane. I just wanted to see if you'd even consider the idea." I nodded. "I did. I have. That's the problem." She looked over, surprised. "I think about you more than I want to admit. I think about those stupid things you say. I think about what it would be like to come home to you. I think about how easy it is to be around you and how terrifying that is." She blinked slowly. "Why terrifying?" "Because I've never had that with anyone. And I guess I figured, if it's that easy, maybe it's not real. Maybe I'm fooling myself." Now she was staring at me, but not like before. This wasn't flirtation. It wasn't teasing. She was reading me. "I know what you mean," she said. "You don't trust it because it didn't come with drama." "Exactly," I said. "I've been through the drama." She said quietly, "I married young. He was charming and loud and passionate and a complete mess. Everything was a fight or a high. Nothing was steady. We were both too proud to admit when we were wrong. It lasted 6 years. "Why 6? I asked. "Because I kept thinking it would settle, that we just needed time, but time only exposed how different we really were." She looked down into her coffee. "I'm not looking for fireworks anymore, Zach. I'm looking for peace, for someone who listens, who shows up." I stared at her, and for once, I didn't feel like a kid talking to an older woman. I felt like a man having a real conversation with someone who had lived more life than I had, but wasn't jaded by it. "I don't know if I'm ready for marriage," I said, honestly, "but I know I'm not ready to lose you." I got a reaction. Her lips parted, but she didn't speak. "I'm not saying we jump into something," I said. "I'm not even saying we tell anyone. I'm just saying I'm here, and I'm not laughing anymore." She smiled, but this time it reached her eyes. "Good," she said, "because I was tired of being funny." After the cafe, she asked if I wanted to take a walk. We ended up walking through a quiet park nearby. The air was cool, the lights dim. There weren't many people out, just the occasional jogger or a couple holding hands. I kept glancing over at her, and each time, she was already looking at me. "I don't think I've ever said this to anyone I work with," she said, "but I like being around you more outside the office than in it." Quote. I grinned. "That's saying something. You put up with me in stand-ups." She laughed barely, but it was real. There was a moment when we passed an empty bench where I reached for her hand. I didn't think too much about it. It just felt like the right thing to do. And she didn't pull away. We sat down and just sat. No agenda, no rush, no deadline. Eventually, she turned to me and said, "So you gonna kiss me or keep overthinking it?" Quote. I smiled. "That obvious?" She nodded painfully. I leaned in slowly, no rush, no pressure. When our lips touched, it wasn't cinematic. It wasn't fire and thunder. It was calm, warm, familiar in a way I couldn't explain. She rested her forehead against mine and whispered, "That wasn't so hard, was it?" Quote. "No," I said. "It really wasn't." We didn't go home together that night. We didn't text cheesy lines after. We didn't change our Facebook statuses or take a selfie. We just let it be what it was. And for the first time in years, I wasn't anxious about what tomorrow would bring. The next morning at the office, Nothing looked different, but I felt it. I passed her desk and she looked up, gave me the smallest smile, the kind of smile you keep just between two people. And I knew that something had started, not because of what she said, but because this time I said something back. It had been about a month since that night at the cafe. Things didn't change overnight, but they changed steadily, quietly, and in the right direction. We didn't make some big announcement at work, no dramatic office romance. We kept things low-key, just like we both preferred. No hand-holding in meetings, no flirty messages on Slack, no stolen kisses in the stairwell. It was something more grounded than that. We had dinners at each other's places. We took turns picking movies we'd both fall asleep to halfway through. I learned she hated folding laundry, but loved organizing shelves. She found out I sometimes talk to myself when I'm debugging code, like full-on conversations. Neither of us ran. That alone said a lot. One Friday morning, I came into the office a little earlier than usual. I brought coffee, hers with oat milk and 1 pump of caramel, just how she liked it. She looked up from her screen when I placed it beside her keyboard. "Thanks," she said, a little smile pulling at her mouth. "No problem, temporary wife," I said. She gave me a sideways glance. "Excuse me?" I smirked and pointed to the t-shirt she was wearing the weekend before, the one with her own handwritten sharp text across the chest. "Temporary wife. Permanent vibes." She laughed softly and shook her head. "Don't read too much into that. I'm not just saying you wore it like it meant something." She took a sip of her coffee and leaned back. "I wore it because it made you blush." Fair enough. There was a pause, one of those charged silences again. The kind I'd gotten better at sitting through instead of escaping with a joke. "I've been thinking," she said, "about us." I nodded slowly. "Me too." She didn't rush. Caroline never did. "I'm not going to pretend I have it all figured out," she said, "but I know what this feels like, and it feels right." I didn't need to say anything to agree. She could see it on my face. We didn't move in together, not yet. But we started spending most nights at my place. It wasn't even a decision. It just happened. One day her toothbrush was on my sink. Then half her closet lived in my dresser. Then we got into a minor fight about who used the last of the almond milk and made up over pancakes. One night we were watching some show neither of us was really paying attention to. She was curled up on my couch wearing a hoodie that used to be mine. Her bare feet were tucked under a blanket, and she was holding a cup of tea like it was precious. I looked over and said, "So do you still think you could be my wife?" She smiled without looking away from the screen. "Not today." I raised an eyebrow. "But someday." Now she turned to me, looked me straight in the eyes. "Maybe," she said, "if you ask the right way." I laughed. "There's a right way?" She nodded. "Oh, definitely." No public scenes, no flash mobs, no rings inside cupcakes. Quote, "Noted," I said. "Guess I'll have to get creative." That night, after she fell asleep, I lay there awake next to her, realizing something. She wasn't joking anymore, and neither was I. 3 months later, I brought it up again. We were in the kitchen making breakfast together. She was burning the toast like always, and I was trying to fry eggs without breaking the yolks. I looked at her and said, "If I asked for real, what would you say?" She turned off the toaster, crossed her arms, and stared at me. I held her gaze. "No smirk, no jokes," she said. "I'd say yes, but only if you're sure." "I am." Another pause. "Then ask me when it feels like the right moment," she said. "Don't do it now. Let it surprise us both." And that's what we did. We didn't rush. We didn't force a label. We just lived together day by day. We went to family barbecues where she met my mom. My mom adored her. Caroline was nervous but natural. My mom hugged me after and whispered, "She grounds you." She did in ways I didn't even know I needed. About a year after the day she said that line at lunch, the one that started everything, we were on a weekend trip to the Catskills. Rented a small cabin with no Wi-Fi and a fireplace that barely worked. One morning, while she was sitting on the porch in a wool sweater, hair a little messy, reading a book in the sunlight, I came out and sat next to her. She looked over, smiled, and I said, "I could be your husband, you know, if you ever asked." She closed the book, leaned back, and said, "Then ask." So I did. No ring yet, no big plan, just words. And she said yes, not joking, not blinking, just yes. We didn't post it online, we didn't tell the whole office. Just kept it ours for a while. Eventually, we told our close friends. Started looking at places to live outside the city. Found a little house with a crooked porch and a lemon tree in the backyard. We're not married yet. We don't need the title to know what we are, she still jokes sometimes. Still calls me young and slow.